Welcome to the Community Warehouse. This is Imran Nalawala, and I'm joined once again by Habib Qadri, my gracious co-host. Habib, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
It's been some time, and I know we're excited about an amazing podcast interview we have today with a good friend of yours.
Correct. Yeah, Dr. Keith Woods.
So, Dr. Keith Wood, I know I actually had the honor of interviewing him once before. I know he's from Brooks Middle School out in Bolingbrook. Something we have to talk about. One of the best libraries that I've probably ever been to across the United States. An amazing library. And I know Dr. Woods and yourself have worked in Harvard together. And I
Yes,
also know that Dr. Wood has recently won a State Principal of the Year award in Illinois.
correct for middle school. So we're really excited to have him here.
So we got two award-winning educational leaders. And without further ado, let's get Dr. Wood out here. Dr. Wood, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Well, we're really excited to have you here, Dr. Woods. As you know, this podcast is trying to bring in the community talent that we have in Illinois and throughout the United States to share ideas and thoughts of how to become better individuals, leaders, community activists, and also in the field of education. And we thought we would love to have you, our individual who has many years of experience, more than 20 years of experience. But we wanted to, before we talk about this amazing award that you won this year for being the top middle school principal in the state of Illinois, we wanted to, before we find out about those amazing things that you have done to be recognized, we want to get a better understanding of who Dr. Keith Wood and your journey to where you are right now, from the principal to the chair of the Harvard School of Education Advisory Board for the Principal Center. So we wanted to kind of see if you could just take a few minutes to kind of give us a better understanding to all of our listeners out there, not fellow educators, leaders, community activists, just students, to get a better idea of who Dr. Keith Wood is.
Sure, I'm happy to do so. It's just really interesting when as I listen to you talk about like where I am now, it's kind of hard to like connect that to who I was when I was just thinking about getting into education or just living my life, to be honest. So I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, spent time between 32nd and Prairie, all the way up to 92nd and Stony, between both sets of grandparents. My parents decided to move out of Chicago into Bellwood, essentially just in search of a better opportunity for me. And I was able to attend Jefferson Elementary, MacArthur Middle School, Proviso West High School, and right after that went into the military. And I would like to say, which I always often do, that I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my experience in the military and the support of my family. School was really never the place for me. I always went because it was just something to do or it was mandated, but I never really understood what the purpose was for it. And I really didn't feel like I was connected to any of the schools that I went to. And that's not to say that I didn't have good educators and good people who were in my corner. I just wasn't ready for it. But going to the military really opened my eyes to the differences that existed across our nation in terms of people who had options and those who did not. And it was at that moment that I decided I wanted to be part of the solution and not necessarily part of the problem.
Could you go back to the military component of it, and can you go into more details in terms of how the military prepared you?
Sure. I think part of it was just the rigor and the discipline of, having a mission and being focused on that. But I think more importantly was the relationships, the people that I met from all across the nation, different states, and hearing their stories about where they came from, how they got into the Army, learning about their families, their communities. And for many of them, it was like the military was their only option. And so it just made me think about education and how it's like a lever for many people to like move from, one level to the next. And if not provided with that opportunity, many don't make it. They don't get to the level or their experience all that there is that can be experienced just due to the fact that it wasn't there as an option.
So now, when you left the military, so what you first, before you became a school leader, did you teach for some time? Just like a quick brief timeline to before you got all the way up to Brooks Middle School.
Sure. I started in Maywood, Melrose Park, District 89, 3 years as a social studies teacher. I felt that
connection. I was a social studies teacher too.
Yeah. It's that connection. And I was only there for a few short years. And I think out of my entire career, that's one of my regrets, is not spending more time in the classroom, getting more of a foundation in terms of like instructional practice through the lens of a teacher. And so I've done things over the years to try to support that piece. But one of my good colleagues or friends at the time said, hey, there's this type 75 that you could start exploring. Might as well get started now. And I told her, I was like, I just graduated. I'm good where I'm at. She's like, no. You need to continue on. And I did. And when I graduated with my master's degree, that very next fall, I was right in the schools as an administrator. So spent a few years in Maywood Melrose Park as a building leader at the assistant principal level. And then Dr. Joseph Palermo reached out to me from Berkeley School District 87 and said, hey, love to have you come on board. We have a spot for you. And I was able to transition there, which was pretty cool because that was a school I graduated from in 8th grade. So I had an opportunity to see it from all ends and even work with some educators who hadn't yet retired by the time I made it back.
Nice.
Did you have any aha moments while you were studying? Because you brought up your trajectory and the different places you lived and your different school experiences, and not quite being prepared or not quite understanding the benefits of education. So while you're in college, while you're getting your master's, while you're starting off in Melrose Park, and was Melrose Park or Maywood?
It's both. It's a combined district. Yeah.
My connection is like I grew up in Schiller Park, and Melrose Park is where I went to the movie theater. I used to go to the Cinemark in Melrose Park.
Yeah.
So what are some of the aha moments you're having early on in your career that make you think, you know what, I wish I had this opportunity as a student myself?
I think part of it is just I think our growth and development is just people and individuals based on experiences. And when there are many factors, but it's a lot that has to do with experience and access. So if you don't have opportunity to engage in different experiences, something as simple as going on a field trip, if you don't have those opportunities, then you don't have a chance to grow and develop and see things through different lenses from multiple perspectives. So even as a teacher early on, I knew that was important. And I think my kids and their families early on, they were like, what is wrong with Mr. Wood? Because it wasn't doctor at the time, Mr. Wood. Why is he taking us on all these field trips? And why is his class the only class that goes and, everyone else stays behind it? I have to pay another field trip fee. And I thought it was important. So we got out quite often just to go in different parts of the city, go to different museums, different other experiences that kids would normally get, just, eating lunch somewhere other than the school cafeteria.
So this idea of having, people who have, experiencing to look at the world from various eyes or various perspectives. I'm also hearing this idea of having, mentors of individuals to help motivate you or are pushing you to keep, moving forward. So inculcating some of those. So when you now became a school leader yourself, and now you had your own school where, you've been, how long you been at Brooks Middle School?
This is my 12th year.
12th year. All right. Wow. So you've been there for 12 years. What if you had to say, like, hey, here's what when you first got there, what were some things that you've tried to do to make sure you try to get all the stakeholders involved? And what were some of your goals for some of the individuals to see what you maybe walked into and to where you are now for the state of Illinois to recognize and vote you in to be the state middle school principal of the year?
Sure. I think two things, maybe three, really stand out for me. One is service, the other is community, and the other is equity. So I've tried to like spend the lion's share of my life and education as a teacher, as a school leader, kind of focusing in those areas. And I think over the years, we've been able to like really move forward as a school. And I could say like one of the biggest things that happened when I got to Brooks was, I was talking to my leadership team and other folks about like, how can I like, what would be some good ways to connect to the community. And I remember having a conversation with Sharon Alexander, who's also an educator, and she was a former administrator in Valley View. And I just randomly, and this is about like experiences, right? I have randomly met her in line getting some ham for Christmas, I believe, or Thanksgiving or what it was. So just a random conversation, and we just met that way. And she was telling me about some things that she had either done or heard about to like get introduced into a community. And one of the things she mentioned was house visits. So I'm like, okay, I have 1,100 students. That'd be pretty hard to get to every house. But maybe if we did it with incoming class, the sixth graders, and we could build up on that, over the years. So that's what we did. We got buses through the district, got folks to volunteer to go out, and we hit just about every house. Not every kid was home, but for the students and the parents that opened the door to our staff, it was, I think it was kind of like transformational to a certain degree, because it's something that folks typically don't do. They just wait for kids to arrive at the school, and then that's when education starts. So I think that was a way of signaling that community is important and that we're here to support both home and school and make that connection. So when we did that the first few years, it was very interesting when we would talk to, and I live in a community, so I would run into, people at different places. They're like, well, we can't wait for you to come to our house next year. And I was like, oh, okay, so we definitely got to do it another year, just keep that momentum going. But it says a lot to, I think, our staff to get to see the wide range of students that we serve. And we went to every area of Bolingbrook and also in the Romeoville, because we're spread over 2 communities and they're quite large. It was something that was important to us. And we did that for about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. And then we transitioned to doing on-site, like what we will call like bulldog bashes, like welcome back to school. And it's just a lot of fun and pomp and circumstance. And then pandemic hit.
Nice. So you went from kind of one part was connection and then which is that sense of belonging that you hear that quite a bit in a lot of psychologists are really to motivate individual kids or to make them feel comfortable at a school, that sense of belonging. Then the other aspect is like, is, from the academic front, what were some things that you maybe try to see from where you were, and what were some protocols or procedures or systems that you try to set in place to help kind of making sure great learning is happening?
Sure. I think from the academic perspective, it's really about staying connected and keeping like the instructional core. Habib, you're going to nod your head. The instructional core front and center, and knowing that you got teachers and students and the content that they're connected to as the core of instruction. And knowing that when you make a change or shift in one, you have to understand and respond to and support the other. So I think the major focus academically is just getting in the classrooms, visiting with teachers, visiting with students, not necessarily looking at what the teacher's doing. The instructional moves are important, but more importantly is the student. What is the student doing? How are they engaging? What are they working on? Identifying level of rigor, depth of knowledge that exists, and listening to what they say to each other, to the teacher. And so shifting that focus from the instructor and just thinking about the instructor more as a facilitator, and really trying to key in on what is actually happening and how the student is processing, how they're making their thinking visible in order to diagnose learning needs, misconceptions to help move kids forward. The other part of it is just right curriculum implementation. One of the things that we've done over the last couple of years is just really had a lot of conversations across staff in terms of like, how is our curriculum representative of the students that are in front of us? And we look at that through the lens of race, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And, you know, are our curriculums inclusive? If not, how can we make them more so? Definitely want to teach the content, but then this gets back to your sense of belonging and community. Those things to me are equally as important, because if kids don't feel they belong, then they're less likely to connect to the school, more likely perhaps to disengage and not get the full impact of what we're providing.
So I'm hearing you guys are visiting homes, right? And then you're also working on the curriculum, you're talking to staff. So you're getting buy-in from across different stakeholders, being parents, the students, and the staff. Does this make your job easier in the long term in terms of, you know, I've never experienced a teacher visiting my house, and I could only imagine if a teacher did. I could imagine my parents giving them like carte blanche in terms of doing whatever they wanted at the school. So do you feel like your job has become easier because the parents now, they get FaceTime, they get to see you at a more personal level? So how has that impacted the situation?
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I think one of the things that helps with that is the fact that I'm a community member. So I see people all over, different places, Walmart, school, it doesn't matter. So they know that our staff is approachable, our staff is supportive. And yes, I think it breaks down the barriers that often exist between home and school. It increases the level of trust. And folks know that there's someone they could go to when they have a need. So it's about communication and letting parents know, also informing them of the resources that are available, whether we have that offered directly in the school, which we have, I mean, a ton. I mean, I could spend a whole hour talking about the different resources that we have, but I would like take a little bit of time to talk about one. And, you know, so by providing that increases the opportunity for students to be successful.
So you have, I'm going to slowly go into another segment, but just the first, so just to kind of clarify, so we would say, hey, we got students where we're taking care of, making sure the curriculum, and then for teachers and kind of for 14 years to kind of keeping that buy-in and staying. Were there any gems or anything that you would kind of want to share to fellow educators or even people working in corporate America, any other place, to how to keep that cohesive and that positive climate and culture with the staff also, knowing that middle school is not the easiest. And you have about, what, if I remember, about 1,000 kids, or 8 to 1,200 kids?
1,100.
Wow.
1,100, yeah. 6th, 7th, 8th grade students. It's no joke, especially at the age of 13.
Well, I think more specifically about 300 to 400 7th graders, but yes, that's another story. I'm not going to say that, you know, everything has been, you know, wine and roses. There's always, you know, peaks and valleys, right? So I think the way to sustain that is just to constantly check in, keep a finger on the pulse, and find out what the need is, particularly more when you feel that it's something that you don't want to hear. I think those are the things that are most important, because that creates opportunity to refine practice over time. So it's definitely something, you know, we learn about balcony view or bird's eye view, and then being down on the dance floor. So teachers on the dance floor, they are in the midst of everything and they see things at their level. As a building leader, I don't have that opportunity or privilege. So I have to listen to voice and feedback, whether it's on how folks feel about the curriculum or practices that we have in the school. Not everyone agrees, but I think part of it is just listening. What I like to call it listening to learn. You have to open yourself up to all types of information. And then more importantly, make sure that you have a team that is able to talk about the good, the bad, everything in between, and just hash it out. have that conversation and be involved in the planning process. And we like to say that, we're not always going to solve every situation in a moment. Some of these things take a while to get better at. But I think when people know that they have a voice, they're being heard, and also the other part is we're not always going to agree. But if people know that they've been able to provide that input and they could understand reasonably the rationale for a specific course of action, then it's more likely that people will, even if it goes against what they wanted, will support it, because they know at the end of the day, we're here for students and we're here for our wider school community.
So, what's amazing for anyone who's listening to this and the audience is that as he's running this school of 1,100 individuals, he also was a part-time professor at, if I remember, Concordia College?
Yeah, that was back in the day, correct.
And then also, he is the chair of Harvard University Advisory Board School of Education, or Principal Center, co-chair. So kind of give us more about that, Keith. What are some of the things that the advisory board at Harvard University, does? Is it with, focusing on some of the professional development program? You just want to kind of give how you're balancing all that. So first, what you do there, and then some tips about how do you balance all this, right? So
as a co-chair, part of our duties, and I believe Habib, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Part of our duties is just essentially, because you're involved in it, right? Part of our duties is essentially coming together, and one, I think it's networking. So we're pursuing our own professional learning, but also we're learning about and advising on programs, activities, institutes that Harvard is either implemented and need feedback on or considering implementing. So it's like we're actually impacting a lot of stuff. And this is central to HU, but also nationwide. One of the other things that I like to, I think I've definitely grown and benefited from is just conducting school visits and going to different regions across the nation, experiencing best practice or innovative practices, and doing what I call beg, borrow, and steal. And so learning about it and taking it back to implement. Nice. So in terms of balance, and I also want to add, and not because I'm bragging or anything, I'm just saying this is what I do.
I asked you, that's why it's all good.
Right. So I think service is another component of it, right? So service to the Harvard University educational system. I'm gaining from it, but I'm also serving there. I'm also part of the Valley View Educational Richmond Foundation. I'm on that board, and we do some very positive things across the district, supporting fundraising and grant initiatives for teachers and students across Valley View schools. So spend time serving on that. I'm on the board for H2O, which is another student-centered organization in our community. And essentially they use the word, they want to provide a transformative experience for their students. And so I embrace that transformation. We spoke earlier about experiences and helping folks get from one level to the next. I think that is key and essential and a key piece to it. So I'm also a member of our local Lions Club. Again, service to the community, sight and sound. That, I think my commitment to service is kind of one of the things that really keeps me interested in doing what I do, enjoying what I do, even during the darkest moments, like the pandemic, for example, which really put everybody in a tailspin. But it just keeps me connected to the community, knowing what the needs are, and it keeps me grounded. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, we also know something that on the side that, out with all that other busyness to keep him grounded, one of the other things when he needs to just clear his mind is go on a cruise about 30 to 100, maybe sometimes 50 to 200 miles on his cruisers.
Yeah, so that's the work-life balance part of it, right?
For all the young ones, he wears a helmet. And
yeah, so sometimes you have to get out there and clear your mind, certainly. But, just spending time with family,
Yeah.
Going to movies, just decompressing. My wife will probably tell you I spend too much time on my phone. That's true. I agree with it. But sometimes you do need a separation. But also at the same time, I think that a lot of the things I do them because I like doing them. Yes, it takes time, and it just to me it's just a complete circle.
So I'm gonna pitch a question to both of you. Obviously, like if somebody likes basketball, you grow up playing basketball. Your dream is to make it to the NBA. If you grow up with being creative and you want videography, you want to make it to Hollywood. Both of you are from Chicago. I'm from Chicago as well. You guys grew up. I know, and I interviewed Dr. Wood a couple years ago. Habib, I've interviewed you. Modest background. Talk about that initial excitement or that initial feeling when you got invited to join Harvard and to join at a high level. I mean, that's not something that everyone has access to. So what was that initial reaction like?
So I could tell you that and this was before, it was, I think, my final year at Berkeley, my assistant superintendent, assistant superintendent at the time was very good about laying out professional development opportunities. And there was one for the learning leadership evolving vision at HU. And she's like, you should try this. And I was like, do you know how much this costs? And she's like, yeah, just try it. See how it goes. I'm like, okay. And so once again, the word transformative comes up. It was the only institute that I had attended where I was in a room, about 140 other school leaders, give or take. Habib, that's how we met. So many like-minded people, so many people who obviously went there to get their battery recharged, but just so positive, so hopeful about education. I was just blown away. So I would like to say that initial experience, it transformed me. I'm like, me, a kid from the South Side. I mean, I don't look like a kid now, but I still feel like that in many ways. There's no way I should be sitting here on this interview just talking to you guys about my work and my life. But those experiences, I'm working with HUS, definitely helped me learn and grow as an educator, see things through different lenses, and really focus in on what's the most critical elements of just teaching and learning and life in general. So every year I've had the opportunity to be connected in one way or another, whether it's facilitating small groups during institutes. And so that learning has continued for the last 12 years or so, and just so grateful for it.
Habib, how about yourself?
And they liked him so much. It's like, hey, we want you to be the chair of the advisory board. So, it's been, I think one of the greatest things is, you have this opportunity to learn from each other, right? So it's not just even from the professors, but from others and their experiences. But the idea is of being open. And so, really one of the big things is, I think one of the things at Harvard, I think we've all learned is to reevaluate ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to change others or transform others, you need to make sure are you able to transform? Are you able to rethink and refocus on thoughts as kids and life and teachers and curriculums and change? How do you go ahead and kind of balance all the stakeholders together? So I think that's been great, and just the opportunity of I feel like when you do things, hopefully with that passion, I think it's nice that we were just doing our stuff, and then through time people just recognize you or whatever, and then we're invited. So it's just a unique opportunity, and I think it's just been something that's been great. And we get to visit so many different schools, see some doctoral students and what are the research that they're doing. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really beneficial for us too, even though they're taking our advice. And I think that's what's so beautiful to see sometimes even these professors who are there for many years, so humble to be like, hey, as practitioners, what do you guys think? Right. And I think that's what the beauty of, I think, Harvard is. It's not, even though it's theory, but there's a lot of times that there's relationships with practitioners to make sure that theory can be put into practice.
Yeah.
And make it transformative. And I think that's, I think that's one of the beauty of Harvard University, and we're really excited. And
I would agree with that.
This guy, my boss on my advisory board.
I agree with that 100%, Habib. And it's like you hit the nail on the head. Theory to action, the theory to practice, making sure that it's, it might work in a vacuum, but the litmus test is when you're actually in classrooms, watching students do the work, engaging in conversations with educators. It's key, it's critical. And just to be connected to folks from across the globe. I mean, I have met so many wonderful people from all over the place, and coming with, from a place of being humble, and I mean, some brilliant folks, but really just being passionate about the work, talking about like what we could do to take our schools, whether it's private, public, or what have you, to the next level.
So go ahead, W.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's on the horizon for you, Dr. Wood? Like what's in the future? What's on this trajectory that you've already laid out for us?
I think it's in process. I'm going to continue the work in Valley View. I just put in for 3-year notice of retirement. So my official like full-time work will come to a close in the not too distant future. But eventually, I don't know, I'm just really, really playing around with the idea of working in either a rural community or with indigenous folk to the extent that I can, to just continue to provide folks with like transformative experiences or options or seeing things from different perspectives. So I see the work continuing, but in the short term, we definitely have a lot of work to do at Brooks and in the community as a whole across our district in terms of equity. And we want to make sure that we're providing experiences that are reflective of the students that we have in our charge. So we're working at the building level, at the district level, partnering to see what we could do to like eliminate the achievement gap, to shine a spotlight on the needs, to build in systems of support to make it more likely that every student gets what they need.
Amazing.
Well, Dr. Woods, again, really appreciate you taking your time. Me and Dr. Woods, first time we dormed together. Remember back at one of the Harvard dormitories.
Yeah, the official. So it's like we were students, but we were grown.
So that's it was great. And again, hey, thank you so much, and future success for everything you have accomplished and what you're doing for the kids, and in your future goals of also still, even if you retire, you still already have some places that you want to go and help out specific groups of individuals. That kind of shows the character of an individual you are. So I can't just say you're one of my colleagues, but I always say also a friend. So really appreciate you taking your time. Again, congratulations, well-deserved award for Dr. Woods, and congratulations to you and your family.
Thank you. And if I could just say one thing, and it's because I didn't mention it and I want to. Community partnerships, I think, are key because schools we don't exist in a vacuum. So anytime you have an opportunity to reach out, make connections, do so. So one of the things we did this year at Brooks was to open up partner with Will County Health and their organization. And we put a clinic in middle school, at Brooks. So it was the first middle school in our district to have a clinic on site so students can get physicals, immunizations, wellness checks. We're looking to expand to get the mobile dentists out and connected so that students won't have to lose instructional time. They could have everything taken care of on site.
Nice.
Amazing. Amazing. Dr. Wood, thank you. Go ahead, W.
No, that's it. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for your time. It was always a pleasure to interview and learn from your journey, and we look forward to having you back on.
All right, I really appreciate the opportunity, and till the next time.
Thank you.